So good morning, everyone. Happy Sunday. And today, let me start my Sunday morning with a positive note. I had just received word that 2 of the boys who are trapped in a cave in Thailand have been rescued. And I would like to give a shout out to all those dedicated men, and maybe there are women, I don't know, but the dedicated people who have been trying so hard to rescue these boys. I think for this Sunday morning, we can say a little prayer of thanks. And please, keep them in your thoughts. I know it's not in the US of A, but these are children. Children who also are separated from their parents, and I can just imagine how worried their parents are. So I would like to give a shout out to the people of Thailand and the people around the world who have been supporting and praying for these kids. Let's keep them in our prayers today, because that's a dangerous job they're doing over there. And I don't know how I would be as a parent if I knew my son was trapped in there. So good morning, Lauren, and good morning, Frost. And good morning to all those who are just tuning in. Today's a special day for me because I'm going to introduce the mug that really means a lot to what is going on in our present society. So here it is. I know you can't see it because it's reverse, but it says the best man for the job is a woman. Let it sink in. The best man for the job is a woman. Let's drink to that. So why is that important? Now that the election dates are starting to come closer, with the primary going to be decided on August 28th, I'd just like to encourage everyone to please keep these dates in mind, and we will post them after we're done. There will be a post regarding early voting, when to register, where to register, and all that. If you are confused, please visit our website at www.jenniferzimmermanmd.com. So there is a link in our website that leads you to the Supervisor of Elections website, so you know if you are registered, and if you want to participate either by going to your polling booth and making sure you know which precinct you're supposed to show up, where you're supposed to show up, and if you're still a registered voter, because they have been purging those rolls. So people, please make sure you check. Also, if you want mail-in ballots, you can also sign in for that one, because some people may be going off to college, like my son and Lauren, and I hope that you have made plans regarding voting. A lot of our teenage supporters are going off to different colleges, maybe outside the state, but they are registered to vote here. So let's make sure we either do mail-in ballot or early voting. So let's get to the nitty-gritty. Why is this woman qualified? Number one, we need to know the history of all our candidates. We need to make sure that we can verify exactly what they have done in the past. It is very easy to put accomplishments and very easy to put glowing reports on a resume. But unless you've been in this community and people have interacted with you, they really have no way to know exactly who you are. But first of all, oh, hello there, Helen. I see here that you already are voting by mail. Thank you very much. And you too, Lauren. So let's encourage our friends to do the same if they are unable to go to the booth. But let me remind everyone who are still on the fence and who are not sure exactly who to vote for. Let me remind you exactly why you need to think about your candidates. And there are certain qualities that you need to really be emphasized on. For example, according to Forbes, 8 qualities of a great leader. And let me tell you exactly why I fulfill those qualities. Number 1, sincere enthusiasm. Now, come on, folks. You've seen me talk. You've seen me in all those forums. I don't think there's any question who can be more enthusiastic about the issues that she believes in. You cannot be, how do you say that? Enthusiasm cannot be faked. A fake cheerleader can be seen a mile away. When leaders are sincere, they're enthusiastic, and they're passionate, that's contagious. So I know my team knows that. Team Z knows that this leader is extremely passionate about what she believes in. And there's no way you're going to question my enthusiasm. Let me remind you too, I am still actively practicing as a pediatrician. I'm like 5 people in one. I don't think any of the other male candidates can handle that. Remember, a woman can multitask, and she can multitask effectively. So, not only am I actively campaigning, I'm also actively serving still the underserved children of Northwest Florida. I'm also a wife, I'm a mother, and I also love to cook. So I take care of my household. Can any of you do that? Number 2, integrity. Do what's right, even if it hurts the bottom line. Know when to give proper credit for accomplishments and acknowledging mistakes and putting safety and quality first. Let me tell you, as a small business owner for the past 20 years, establishing kids care pediatrics on my own with no hospital help, I can tell you that this woman knows how to admit her mistakes and correct them. And this woman knows that doing what is right is what is important. As a physician, I cannot put safety as a secondary criteria. What I have to do is decide if the purchases in the clinic are for the patient's safety, even if it hurts my bottom line. Case in point. Very simple to you, but you may not even think about it. Just the use of safety needles. Yes, it is mandated now by OSHA to use safety needles. Those things can cost about 3 times more than the regular needles that you and I are you may be accustomed to. 3 times more. Unfortunately, I am not paid 3 times more just for complying with that law. Get it? You have to put safety first. Safety of the babies and safety of your employees. There's no way I'm going to let a nurse get stuck by a needle because I wanted to save money. Now, do I want to save money? Of course. That would be foolish not to admit that. But if it comes at the expense of patient safety, then you might want to reconsider which physician you're going to. Great communication skills. Well, I don't think we have to argue about that. Leaders must know how to motivate, instruct, and discipline people they are in charge of. I don't think we have to argue about the fact that when I talk, I am able to motivate and inspire people. But you know what else is important about communication that people don't really understand? It is also the ability to listen. Listen so you hear what the other side is saying. I've been doing that for over 20 years in my pediatric practice, in all my relationships. I do listen. That's the only way I know if the symptoms coincide with my physical exam. If I go into a room and I already presume what the patient has is what I'm thinking, I will miss the correct diagnosis. Oftentimes a child comes in and the main complaint is bedwetting, and the parents are so convinced they have a urinary tract infection. But I have to get to the story. I have to get to the bottom of it. A child who has already been potty trained should not be bedwetting. Unless, yes, if they have an infection or if there's pressure on the bladder or the belly. And one of the most common that people don't think about is that your child might be constipated. Because what do we have here in America? A lot of processed foods. And because they're processed, our guts have a hard time digesting them. And when they're stuck in there, they will exert pressure on the bladder. And therefore, a child may start to bedwet. But if I don't ask the right questions and I don't actually listen to what the child or the parent is saying, I can mistakenly give that child medication to treat a non-existent urinary tract infection. You see how listening is an important tool of communication? And I'm glad that you're here with me sharing a cup of coffee because you are listening to what I'm saying. So thank you very much. Number 4, loyalty. Now, this is not the loyalty that our present administration is demanding. True loyalty is reciprocal. That means in friendships and relationships and being a boss. If your employees are loyal to you, you must reciprocate. It's not just one way, not one-sided. That will never, ever succeed, or that will never work out in the long run. I actually, and I tell my patients this, I record all telephone conversations in our clinic. For example, if you call Kids Care Pediatrics, you are warned or you are informed that the conversations are recorded. See, it works both ways. If a parent complains to me that she never received a lab result, or that the staff member was rude, it's a protection for my staff. I review the record or the recorded conversation, and I let the parent hear it, and we can discuss. A lot of times they apologize because they know I have evidence and I have protection for my staff members. But I'm also loyal to my patients. I know that they could go elsewhere, they could seek other pediatricians, but they choose to come and trust my judgment. Therefore, the recording also helps because then I can see who actually is telling the truth and I can resolve the situation. Therefore, it's not a he said, she said. It is confirmed. Number 5, decisiveness. Willing to take on the risk of decision making. A true leader knows that in order to decide, he or she just doesn't jump to conclusions. He or she must be able to investigate, hear both sides, and be able to make a rational decision. You cannot be a good leader by just being one-sided. But in the end, after you've heard both sides, you should be able to delineate who's telling the truth and the actions that have to be taken afterwards. Number 6, and this is very important, managerial competence. Competence. Able to inspire, motivate, mentor, and direct. And let me stop this for now. There is a comment here by Jason. True loyalty is inspired, not demanded. You are so right. That's why I mentioned that. Because apparently in this administration, it is demanded from every government official, including agencies that should be independent. That is dangerous. It should be mutual respect and cooperation. And you must recognize the hierarchy and the protocols that have to be observed. So let me go back into managerial competence. If your leader cannot inspire and motivate or mentor and direct, what kind of a leader is that? It is not enough to simply be good at your job. There are a lot of people who are excellent in their jobs, but cannot be a true leader. For example, since I started working here in Florida in 1997, I have mentored hundreds of students, whether they're physician assistants, nurse practitioners, just those starting medical school or nurses. Anywhere from University of Florida, Florida State University, Vanderbilt University, you name it. University of South Alabama, University of Alabama, Auburn, even Pensacola Christian College. They have all come to our clinic to be mentored. And when they leave, they all say the same thing. Thank you very much, Dr. Zimmerman. I did not know that pediatrics could be so difficult, and yet you've inspired me to do better in what I have to do as a nurse, as a medical student, as a physician assistant, whatever their position is, because we saw how much you cared for these children. We saw how much you treat each child with respect and dignity. And we saw how you listen to the parents. I have inspired a few of my patients to go into the medical field. If you're not able to inspire others to do what's right, that's not an effective leader. And right now, that's sorely lacking. Here's another case in point. There are a lot of really successful coaches in Major League Baseball or the NBA. And you know how I love baseball, so I'm going to name a few. And let me tell you what the similarity is. Joe Torre was a very successful manager, both for the New York Yankees and the LA Dodgers. He entered as a Hall of Fame as a manager, not as a player. He was very good as a player, but not Hall of Fame material. Apparently, he was a much better manager. Tony La Russa of the Cardinals, he only reached the minors. I was surprised. And yet, he holds the record of being the third on the list of wins as manager. Another one that you might be familiar with in this area, Bobby Cox. Remember Bobby? He was the Braves manager in the 90s when there was a big rivalry between the Yankees and the Braves. He too was not known to be at the top of the line as a player, and yet, as a Braves manager, he was excellent. And last but not the least, in the NBA, Phil Jackson. He did play in the NBA, but he was not Michael Jordan. And yet he holds the record for having the most wins as a coach. He too is a Hall of Famer as a head coach in basketball, not as a player. So you see, as a true leader, you may or may not be excellent at your present position, but you may be excellent in motivating others to do their best. Number 7, empowerment. Empowerment has faith in their employees' ability to train and develop. Has faith in one's ability to train and develop employees under them. This is what I do with my staff. When they first come to the clinic, they're nervous, obviously. I train them because I know what it means to be nervous in your job. I train them so well that when they're scared to write letters, when they're scared to fill up forms, I tell them actually, this is how you fill them up. Now you fill them up and let me see, and I'll tell you and I'll correct you if necessary. And I've noticed that through the years of doing this, a lot of them develop their writing skills, their level of confidence rises, and I don't have to micromanage them anymore. I've empowered them to believe in themselves. I've noticed that too with the students that come and rotate through our clinic. It's a major difference between their first day and their last day. The level of confidence rises when you actually empower them to do their best. Here's another one. Last but not the least, charisma. You must be well-spoken, approachable, and friendly. And you must sincerely care for others. I don't think we have to question that with this candidate. You have seen me at work. The families can tell you that when I enter the room, it's always with a smile. Even if my leg is hurting, even if I've just had my 4th knee surgery, even if I've been having a really, really noisy day from all the kids screaming and I'm probably halfway deaf, I always enter the room or the exam room with a smile. Someone actually asked me one time, Dr. Z, how do you make it happen? How can you smile in the midst of all this chaos? It's very simple. I love what I do. I do truly care for the children. It's not fake, not fake news. Whatever you do in your life, whether you're a candidate, a homemaker, a student, a nurse, a teacher, serving in the army, or the other branches of the military, whatever it is you do, you must sincerely love your position and have the passion for it. Because it's not work. It's not work. But you must be qualified. You must take the credits that are necessary to improve your craft. So let me look at all of this. Hello there, Helen and Marion. And hello, Taylor. I'm sorry if I haven't looked in a while. As you can tell, this is a passionate speaker. And sometimes I do get carried away because I care for what I'm talking about. So there were two questions yesterday that I'd like to address. Number one, despite what other people say, that healthcare is not important, or I keep on talking about healthcare, I keep on being asked about healthcare. So what am I going to do with all these new things that are coming out? And you better be aware. There are lawsuits pending regarding the removal of the protection for the pre-existing conditions. And now the government has announced that they will not be paying the subsidies to these insurance companies. So they couldn't do it outright with the repeal and replace because they really had no replacement. So they're undermining the Affordable Care Act and collapsing the entire system by making sure that the protections that are embedded in the act are going to be removed. Without the subsidies, the health care industry will collapse. The insurance companies will not be able to provide affordable health care that they're supposed to be providing. And all of us who actually pay premiums will suffer. Will suffer. Because now we don't have that protection of spreading the risk, which is exactly what insurance is all about. So when people say, I'm not paying into that because that's not health insurance, hello? What is car insurance? What is homeowners insurance? What is insurance? Period. We have to spread the risk. And in order to do so, we need both healthy and sick people in that pool. But without the subsidies, we will collapse the entire system. And for all of us who may be lucky enough to have pre-existing conditions, which basically means almost all of us, that may be the end of our access to healthcare. You can now be rejected again. Think about that. Even if you're secure in an employer-sponsored health insurance plan, remember what happens in one insurance industry reverberates throughout the insurance industry. And it will affect all of us. And it will overburden the emergency rooms. The emergency room is not your primary care provider. It is meant for emergencies. And if we overburden them again with the uninsured population, we will see a real crisis in our healthcare industry. And a sick population cannot be productive. A sick population cannot go to school. So will I be able to support Medicare for all? Absolutely. Absolutely. I support any healthcare that makes sure or ensures that no American has to die or declare bankruptcy due to medical bills. Let me just tell you a very concrete example. A lady in New York accidentally got caught between the subway and the platform. She crushed her leg. People rushed to help her. Someone said, call 911, call an ambulance. And she screamed, no, please don't. I can't afford the $3,000 I have to pay for the ambulance. Her leg is probably broken. Flesh is coming out. Blood is all over. And yet, her main concern, as she was screaming in agony, was please don't call the ambulance. I cannot pay the $3,000. This is America, folks. This is America. That would never happen in any other industrialized nation in the world. Please think about that when you have to vote on August 28th. Number two concern that was brought up. The mixture of religion and politics nowadays. Today's Sunday, and most people are preparing to go to church, temple, whichever place of worship you go to. Think about this. Our Constitution guarantees the separation of church and state. And people are yelling all over the place that we must follow the Constitution. And yet when it comes to religion, oh, we are a Christian nation. I'm Christian. But you know what? This country was actually founded by people who were fleeing religious persecution. And now we forget. Now we are the ones who are persecuting people who are of different religions, different faiths. What makes this country great is the fact that we do have this freedom. Freedom to worship whichever God you want to worship. Freedom to marry who you should want to marry. A lot of freedoms that have been fought hard for. We have a vacancy in the Supreme Court right now. If we don't elect the right people toward the legislative branches of our government, legislative branch meaning Congress and the Senate, how are we going to ensure that all of our freedoms are protected? You see, District 1 and the rest of the country, this is just not a matter of ego, a matter of who gets in there because they're popular, because they have more money, because they have certain kinds of pedigrees, backgrounds. Really think about those qualities of a leader that I just told you. And if you're just tuning in right now, let me recap, and then we will end this. I will tell you once again to remember these qualities: sincere enthusiasm, integrity, great communication skills, loyalty, decisiveness, managerial competence, empowerment, and charisma. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Have a good day, and let me remind you again that the best man for the job is this woman. This woman can, this woman has, and this woman will succeed if you give me a chance to represent you. Have a good day.